Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're hearing this. My name is Squeak, and we have a lot to talk about today. Before we begin, I want to address some feedback we've received both on social media and from some of our local viewers, and this feedback is the first reason why we have decided to expand the show to a 30-minute block each week. The second reason is that I actually have been recording extra shorter episodes for the past couple of weeks because I'm going to be getting some equipment repaired, so I won't be able to record for 2 or 3 weeks. But when I was recording one, I realized that I spent about half of the time talking about the actual issue at hand, and the other half on a completely different subject. Sometimes it's hard to devote 10 to 15 minutes to a single topic, so this new format will actually allow us to cover a broader range of topics, rather than just pasting 2 subjects together and hoping for the best. This week, we found out Harvey Weinstein, producer and studio executive for some of our most cherished modern classics, was exposed for the power-hungry, sex-addicted scumbag he really is. Rose McGowan and Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey started butting heads like horny mountain goats. Horned mountain goats. Like horny horned mountain goats. The Iranian nuclear deal prepares for a total meltdown. Steve Bannon declares war on the GOP elite. And we find out Charmander was working with the Kremlin all along. My name is Squeak Attack. This is the Squeakly Report.
We, the American people, are at war. How many rich, cigar-chomping, megalomaniac health insurance CEOs doubling their profits? How many people have to die before we're willing to admit that we have a problem here? My name is Squeak Attack. Get used to me. I'll try not to flip my lid too much.
So hey everyone, remember that Pokemon Go game that I'm as surprised as you are that people are still playing? Well, according to many clickbait news sites, Russian quote-unquote trolls set fake social media accounts on Facebook and Twitter to spread misinformation and incite racial tensions with names like Do Not Shoot Us being the most apparent. How does this tie back to Pokemon Go, a middling little app that lost more than half of its player base within the first month, yet has attracted the most devout fanbase the mobile gaming market has ever seen? They offered gift cards to people who would promote their efforts by capturing gyms. For those of you who don't remember or maybe never bothered with the app to begin with, certain landmarks are denoted as Pokemon gyms, where trainers can go to battle their Pokemon, or rather smash their screen repeatedly until something, probably a little piece of their soul, dies. Then the trainer currently in charge of the gym is considered its leader until being overthrown. I remember doing this back in the day. The longest I controlled a gym was about 5 minutes. Yeah, those 12-year-olds. Savages. And you wonder why President Trump thinks you're fake news. Slate, CNN Money, The Verge, geez. You're like a pack of wild animals when it comes to anything involving Russia. I don't know which is worse, your obsession with identity politics, i.e. race, sexuality, and gender, or your ridiculous KGB boners. Maybe it's because every time the already controversial Pokemon company, yes, that's what they're called, gets accused of something insensitive, they actually go out of their way to hide it, to prevent it from happening in the future. They've gone out of their way to change art assets in the anime series, like turning a giant rice ball into a sandwich because kids weren't going to know what a rice ball was outside of Japan. They also called them jelly donuts for the same reason. They altered trading cards to remove the manji symbol, an Asian symbol of peace that served as the inspiration for the swastika, and they changed the Pokemon Jinx, a womanly creature with big lips, from black to purple to avoid such accusations in the future. But yeah, the Pokemon company is totally racist, and Niantic, their partner in the Pokemon Go game, is totally responsible for the antics of a random group of foreign cringelords. Tensions are also high in the Republican establishment right now. Steve Bannon, returning chairman of Breitbart News and former counselor to President Trump, is going after Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell over the fact that many in both houses of Congress are refusing to condemn attacks on the president. It's weird how a hothead like Bannon would be so defensive of the man whose administration he ended up resigning from. However, when you realize the resignation was prompted by threats from the NAACP, as well as slanderous accusations of Bannon being a white supremacist, it's really no harder to believe that Breitbart, a right-wing news media outlet, is an incredibly expedient place to have someone like Bannon. Basically, Trump now has an actual conservative news outlet supporting him. And while Breitbart isn't always the source of the best information, and Bannon himself has a history of professional neglect and mistreatment of some of his editors, Milo Yiannopoulos being a prime example, it's nice to see that at the very least the American people will be able to see both sides of the coin when it comes to their daily dose of mogul-mandated propaganda. I find it funny that traditionally we've seen the concept of propaganda portrayed in the media almost unanimously from the perspective of an overbearing government body controlling the thoughts of its people. We've seen it as far back as the works of Lope de Vega. It popped up in many 20th century works such as Sinclair's The Jungle, Huxley's Brave New World, and most popularly the many works of both George Orwell and Ray Bradbury. Even the Hunger Games is really just a battle of government-run media outlets propagandizing every little thing this random cipher named Katniss Everdeen does. So I find it quite funny that the solution to the media problem we currently have in this country is actually government propaganda that fixes everything. Having somebody like Trump in control of some little bit of the media actually means people are going to see multiple sides. They're going to see what Trump wants you to see, they're going to see what CNN wants you to see, and they'll be able to draw their own conclusions. Everything my experience as a writer and enjoyer of such acclaimed literature, as I mentioned before, has taught me that this is a bad idea, that this is going to destroy the fabric of our society. But when you really think about it, isn't it the left that has spent the past several decades, possibly even the past few centuries, crafting such propaganda? Isn't it the left, and not the governmental left, the civilian left? Aren't they responsible for painting the right as racists, homophobes, Nazis, religious nuts, and warmongers? To the point that people are blind to the fact that they've been committing all the same atrocities themselves ever since the inception of the Democratic Party. They paint Republicans the party that changed the culture of the northern half of the United States to the point that farmers actually didn't want slaves, and will go on to fight against slaveholders in the Civil War, despite knowing that slave plantations were exponentially more profitable. They claim to champion gay rights, but their leaders do whatever they can do to advance the Russian agenda, a country that jails gays. They fight against Judeo-Christian values because they want to rebel against sexual restraint, but promote a religion that cuts women's clits out. They push this narrative that college campuses are rape factories, yet they fight for the alleged rights of a people that worship child molesters as their messiah. All just because it's practiced mostly by, well, brown people. Racism goes both ways, people. That was probably most of Obama's intention with the Iranian nuclear dealings. Back in 2009, for example, he announced that he knew about enrichment facilities in that unstable little country and did nothing. By 2011, the Russians actually had a better grasp on the dangers of an Iranian nuclear program than the EU and US. Then in 2012, the EU began imposing more sanctions of their own. What was the US doing? Sitting on its thumbs, funneling money in cash to this evil little country that wants to destroy us. It was recently confirmed that we gave them $1.7 billion in taxpayer money. For what? To end the decades-old legal battle? Then their leader goes on to say, "Death to America," multiple times in multiple speeches. What the crap, people? I'm sorry, but if I owe you money and you threaten me, you ain't getting a dime from me. I think most people in the private sector would agree with me on that. So why in the bluest of f***s did Obama pay them like that? Because that's all he did as a president. That's all he did was campaign either for himself or for the other cronies that surround him. Because that's all he did as president. He campaigned either for himself or the cronies that surrounded him. The Clintons being the most prominent example of them all. That's all it was. Campaigning, an effort to show the American people that he cares about the affairs of the brown people. The victims of the American Middle Eastern occupation and the victims of the white man. That's what he wanted. That's what his presidency was built on. So Trump threatened to pull out of the deal if Congress wouldn't do their part to impose further sanctions. Another example of Congress not doing their jobs? O'Bannon's going to have a field day with that one, since it's his personal mission to contribute to the swamp draining and whatnot. And then word just broke the other day that he pulled us out. Congress wouldn't agree. You want to know why I haven't dropped more nuclear weapons since the 40s? Because most people would agree that the damage done was total overkill and that no country needs that kind of power, especially during a war that's still being fought with rifles and swords. That's why we, still the most influential country in the world, are so careful about who can develop nuclear weapons and why we're doing our damnedest to make sure other countries with histories of violence and total disregard for human life and basic human rights can't. It's totalitarian in theory. Yes, we're keeping all the nukes for ourselves. But would you rather be the guy inside the tank or the guy squished under the tread? Basic survival. You want to keep the really big weapons out of the hands of the people who want to use them to hurt you. We don't have any other options right now. The reason why countries like France and the United Kingdom and the US and Canada are so totalitarian in our views of nuclear policy is because we don't trust anyone else. No one else has proven to us that they can be trustworthy with a nuclear weapon. Nobody else has earned that prerogative. Oh, but we don't want Trump to have access to nuclear arms now, do we, given that he's literally Hitler? Again, propaganda. They've convinced so many people that Trump, a guy whose only objective right now seems to be a congressional legislative saboteur, the figurative, not literal, white knight of the working class American people, they have people thinking he's actually trying to harm his own people. The government ain't brainwashing anyone. CNN and HuffPo are. Get with the program, people. Stop trying to dehydrate and smoke the Kool-Aid like some psycho and grow up. We've also recently found out that Hollywood elites, the ones we've been so enamored with since the inception of the talkie, have been in on this all along. Why do they think they can get away with threatening to kill the president, burn down the White House, and incite violence against people just for voting for the wrong candidate? They're all tied with the Clinton Foundation and probably countless other Democratic politicians and their funds, or whatever you want to call them, these lawmakers, all thanks to one man at the center of it all, Harvey Weinstein. And word finally got out to the mainstream media that Weinstein was responsible for sexual misconduct with countless young female models and actresses. In fact, authorities and journalists alike are now digging decades into the past, finding an ever-increasing list of victims, as well as an ever-increasing list of evident cover-ups. Weinstein, of course, is denying all allegations, not uncommon for a sleazy millionaire mogul formerly responsible for a nearly billion-dollar facet of the film industry. We're getting statements left and right from everyone involved in this scandal, and it's crazy the number of people who have come forth against the Weinstein Company and this man in particular. Let's look at some of them. Gwyneth Paltrow, forced to give him a sexual massage upon meeting him, was threatened with firing if she talked after having been hired, and confided in her at the time boyfriend Brad Pitt, who then went on to not report it to authorities because, that's totally okay if my girlfriend's getting dirty massages from a dirty old man. Who wouldn't be okay with that? Ashley Judd, same story. She acts like a champion for women's rights and the liberal agenda. Goes to the Peninsula Beverly Hills Motel, same place as Gwyneth Paltrow. Has sexy massage, a shower, felt obligated to do whatever he said in exchange for occupational security. Angelina Jolie, same basic idea, actually refused to work with him in the future. Again, formerly tied to Brad Pitt, and one of the few people who actually managed to be successful after breaking up with the Weinsteins. Got a few more here. We got Mira Sorvino, Rosanna Arquette, Jessica Barth, Cara Delevingne, the list goes on. The latest of that list was actually coached about her bisexuality by him. He basically said that if she slept with another woman, she would never be cast as anything but a lesbian. This was, of course, in a time when sexuality was not appreciated or viewed in the same light it is nowadays. And we're finding out more and more of these typical Hollywood liberal elites were actually completely against homosexuality for the best part of their careers. More specifically, though, it seems he really only wanted her sleeping with him. Yet Lauren O'Connor, now an executive at Amazon Studios, filed a formal complaint a few years back while employed by the Weinstein Company, and the company simply brushed it all under the rug. The general consensus at the Weinstein Company, at least back then, was that you just sort of do what he says and move on. That's just part of the job. It's an occupational requirement. Even Courtney Love has a history of speaking out against the Weinsteins, and, well, look what happened to her. Nobody ever actually listens to her anymore now, do they? They think she's crazy. Turns out, she was right all along. Well, you know what they say, people. It's not what you know. It's what you're willing to put inside you that truly matters in Hollywood. This, of course, is coming off the heels of other high-profile cases against incredibly rich, dirty-minded men in positions of social power. Bill Cosby and Roger Ailes are the first to come to mind. These cases, with enough media attention, however, do seem to increase the number of sexual assaults reported to police from the usual mere 63%, according to the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape. Rape, of course, being the most extreme form of sexual assault. Now, I'm not trying to undermine the severity of any one perpetrator's actions, make no mistake. However, the media has tons of shortcomings, one of which is that any sort of sexual misconduct is lumped together into a single category of assault, being it as benign as a misplaced catcall or a hand accidentally touching somebody in the wrong place, or as severe as serial rape. And that's where a line needs to be drawn. Weinstein is not a rapist, unlike Cosby, who drugged women and did whatever he pleased with them while they were unconscious. Weinstein does fall more into the Ailes category. I'm not saying this exonerates him in any way, but he's not a rapist per se. He's guilty of sexual coercion, sexual blackmail and extortion, if you will, and just being a scumbag in general, but he's not a rapist. All these guys, bags of shit, believe me. But there is a difference, and that does need to be recognized before we start throwing accusations around. That's the reason why we have the culture we have on college campuses today, where you just look at a woman the wrong way, and you're suddenly labeled a racist and thrown out of your program. Granted, many have also come to Weinstein's defense. Lindsay Lohan, Oliver Stone, Donna Karan all made hollow, inconsequential statements on the matter. Even people who knew what was going on, like Brad Pitt, just sort of brushed it under the rug. Meryl Streep expressed nothing but disbelief on the matter. George Clooney claims nothing was going on at all, and some believe Robert Downey Jr. was also aware of what's happening but refused to respond or call due attention to the issue. Either A, out of fear for his status in Hollywood, or B, out of loyalty. If you're my age, you probably remember the name Heather Graham, and if you're male around my age, you probably remember the body of Heather Graham. Remember that sexy rave scene in Austin Powers 2, The Spy Who Shagged Me? Shag well by name, shag very well by reputation, she said. Apparently not according to Weinstein, who refused to cast her. Thus, the career of the only one saving grace of that shoddy attempt at a film reboot of the TV series Lost in Space slowly began to lose steam. Last year she played a role in Norm of the North, a critically pan-animated film, if you can even call it a film to begin with, which proves that her career is officially down the tubes. It's over. It's done. She's relegated to smaller projects, movies being released by online studios. So much wasted talent, so much wasted beauty, all because she refused to sleep with Harvey Weinstein. Folks, you don't have to be a lawyer to read the writing on the wall. Not all of what I'm going to be saying from here on out is factually proven. There's a lot of speculation here on my part. But I think it's pretty obvious that Hollywood, in its current form, is built entirely around Weinstein and other producers' sexual depravity. And it goes beyond young women. Almost 20 dozen were arrested earlier this year in a massive pedophilia ring in good old Tinseltown. Corey Feldman, one of the stars of the classic films The Goonies and Lost Boys, came out with several accusations and accounts, which all seem to corroborate claims made by other actors. Fellow Lost Boy Corey Haim was flat out raped at age 11. Many of these young boys were taken to grooming parties where they were trained for how to respond to the Hollywood elites who would eventually be deflowering them. I don't think I need to explain this any further. If you're watching the show, you have a pretty good head on your shoulders. You could probably figure out what's going on here. About half a decade ago, Feldman appeared on The View where he attempted to speak out against what happened and was actually chided by Babawa Wataz for having done so. That he's damaging an entire industry with his accusations. She clearly did not want him blowing the cover, that she was clearly aware of what was going on. But isn't that just what The View does? Even the freaking name, The View, suggests a singular perspective after all. Totalitarian propaganda masquerading as daytime talk shows. Good thing Elizabeth Hasselbeck and Candace Cameron got out of there when they did. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, the Full House and Fuller House star is also speaking out against Weinstein, having long since figured out what's going on, and that may be, again, why we didn't really see as much from her post Full House as we would have expected. Not only that, but according to an interview with Feldman, due to California's incredibly strict statute of limitations, at least at the time, about the only thing in California law that anyone would consider to be strict, it's been so long that these incidents occurred that if he were to give any names, he would face not only civil lawsuits, but also possible fines and imprisonment for defamation of character. California law actually used to allow Hollywood elites to groom and have sex with children, so long as they can keep their kids quiet for a set period of time and punish the victims instead. It's all a big collusive scheme, people. Some experts believe there are over 100 active child abusers in Hollywood at this time. So you've got the two Corys, good friends, before the latter's tragic passing in 2010, speaking out against this alleged Hollywood pedo ring. Surely they can't be alone, can they? Nope, you got Elijah Wood as well, contributing exposure to the sick underbelly of Hollywood. Rumors are still circulating regarding Katy Perry possibly having attempted to expose the music industry in the same manner. This might actually explain the revolving door of over-sexualized young women Disney and Viacom have been promoting for the past few decades. Raven-Symoné, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, Miley Cyrus. Then you had Miranda Cosgrove and Hilary Duff, who just sort of dropped off the edge after a little while. They got out of it, but considering how the film and music branches of the two companies are so closely interwoven, and considering everything that happened with people like Weinstein and Cosby, I really don't think it's much of a stretch of the imagination to say there's some sort of connection between the two. Do you guys? And then these celebrities have the balls to actually thank Weinstein for pushing their careers forward during the Academy Award speeches. We know that the Academy is a heavily biased entity. We've known that for a while. But this takes it to a whole new level, people. Especially when you consider, as I briefly mentioned before, the connection between the Democratic establishment and the film industry. Again, nothing but extreme, flagrant collusion. And they're playing us for fools. They've been doing this for decades, people, and we're only starting to notice it now. See, this right here, Hollywood, this is the real rape culture. Not UC Berkeley, not Mattress Girl. Hollywood, people. That's rape culture. We have reports of Weinstein paying off Bill Clinton's sexual assault victims. We know the Weinstein company contributed money to both the DNC and the Clinton Foundation. For lack of a better analogy, I think the Clintons and the Weinsteins were in bed together for quite some time. Again, it's no wonder Hollywood is almost exclusively far left. I personally always took the Occam's razor approach, believing that they were merely deluded, out of touch, as the left tends to be. But no, they were doing everything they could to promote Weinstein's pick for president and his political agenda. We know the left is obsessed with sex. They fight for gay rights because gay is an adjective based entirely on sexuality. They champion plurality, and some are pushing for a legal outlet for pedophilia. They want free and legal abortions because that means 5 more days a month of sexual freedom. They want euthanasia as a legal out for parents of mentally and physically handicapped children, and I believe part of their rationale, certainly not all of it, I get it, but definitely part of it, is the fact that it alleviates another sexual responsibility some have if they have a genetic predisposition for certain handicaps. They fought tooth and nail for interracial marriage rights, and by extension, destigmatization of interracial sex. That's all they care about, people. Sex, sex, sex. Phew, I do want to talk briefly about something that I mentioned a bit earlier, the statute of limitations. This is my question for you guys at home at week. Tweet me at Squeak_Attack or visit the Facebook fan page and social group with your thoughts on statutes of limitations. Since 2016, the statute of limitations in the state of California has been lifted. So at this point, Feldman really is free to talk about whatever he wants, but he's not exactly Leonardo DiCaprio here when it comes to the old checkbook, He knows that even though he bears no criminal liability, he could still face a lawsuit if he were to drop any specific names, and that's a major issue because they still have him by the neck if he tries to expose what they've been doing to him. Statutes of limitations prevent false accusations after a certain period of time and are a cost-saving measure for the state. I get that. However, this doesn't change the fact that many people do end up running free or facing reduced sentences due to such technicalities. Technicalities suck, but punishing innocent people isn't the right way either. So it looks like in the end, California did make the right choice. At least that's my opinion. Again, tweet me your thoughts at Squeak_Attack or visit our discussion group and Facebook fan page. I'd love to hear from you guys. See, what else is going on in the world right now? Well, you got Colin Kaepernick. He's decided to actually file a lawsuit regarding the fact that nobody wants to pick him up. He's not exactly a great player. I'm sorry, but you can't even get people to agree on his level of skill. He's certainly no Peyton Manning. I could see if it were Peyton Manning, maybe then there would be some level of recourse for the way he's been acting, but no. He's Colin freaking Kaepernick. He's a nobody. There's one final thing I wanted to talk about this week. It's an update on a previous topic we covered, the ongoing feud between actress Rose McGowan and Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, which is another example of overly liberal Silicon Valley companies maintaining an informational stranglehold. Hey, tweet him too. Just at Jack. It's easy to remember. Tell him what a scumbag he is for putting politics ahead of both his own moral well-being and the health of his company, because Twitter stock prices are tanking. And they're probably going to be going the way of the Zanga within the next half decade. It's a shame. I like Twitter. I like the idea of popping my thoughts out in short little intervals and the range of different ways I can express my views or respond to things that those I follow say. I like how many options the platform gives you for interacting with people, unlike Facebook, where you have to, in some cases, submit them your driver's license information, which, by the way, can be used to seriously screw up someone's credit, just to prove your identity, and that you're only expected to interact with those you believe are your personal friends and family, not random fans on the other side of the country and other parts of the world, and they'll charge you money to interact with potential fans if you run a page and group like mine. However, Twitter has proven its basic level shortcomings in the recent years. There were multiple scandals involving Milo Yiannopoulos and Sargon of Akkad a while back. Sargon, of all people, the most, frankly, milquetoast social pundit out there. The most stereotypical Brit you could ever hope to meet. The guy's about as chill as they come, and Twitter banned him for an imaginary violation of Twitter's imaginary alleged new rules. They won't verify someone like Jake Baldino, producer at GameRanks. Of course not. He's a producer of a major gaming news outlet. Maybe he's just not political enough? I mean, they do verify some right-leaning people, Steven Crowder, Paul Joseph Watson, good examples, so it can't be an entirely political rationale for who they decide to verify and who they don't. It's a system that just doesn't make sense, led by a net ideologue. I criticize Mark Zuckerberg all the time, but at least he has a condition that prevents him from making logical decisions 100% of the time. Jack Dorsey has no excuse for running Twitter like a moron, and my guess is that Twitter just isn't going to survive much longer unless they go through a serious rebranding. The thing is, however, Rose McGowan's suspension from Twitter was justified. She wasn't banned for speaking out. She was banned for posting private personal information, including someone's phone number. McGowan has been one of the most outspoken accusers of Weinstein. She's gone after other celebs like James Corden for making light of the situation and is currently suing Weinstein personally. She, like many others, was blacklisted for coming out about her tragic rape. Then again, so was Lucas Duza, a teenage model. We'll probably never hear from him again thanks to him having fairly conservative views. Oh wait, Weinstein's done so. Well, there's always hope, right? No, there's no hope. You take Hollywood out of the equation, someone like good old @Jack is going to come along and mess everything up again. The problem with McGowan's suspension lies not in the assertion that it was due to her speaking out, but rather the fact that Twitter does an overall horrible job of moderation. I could go on there, do exactly as Milo or Sargon did, say the same things and suffer no consequences. I could be the most racially insensitive, hateful person, and I probably will suffer zero consequences. But a celebrity with a blue checkmark next to her name posts a phone number. You know what swatting and doxing are, right, people? Twitter has been used for both, and the perpetrator suffered zero consequences from Twitter for having done so. So, Twitter picks and chooses who gets punished for breaking their rules. Twitter plays God. What a great image to put in people's heads, Jack. Like I said, at least Zuckerberg has a condition which prevents him from making the most logical decisions, which is characterized by viewing oneself as the literal center of the universe. You, on the other hand, do not. A bit more of a rundown. We got Quentin Tarantino, who claims to have known nothing during his 25 years working with Weinstein. Yeah, that's total bullshit. How dumb does he really think we are? He claims to have suffered pain, emotions, anger. Yeah, right, the only pain you endured was the challenge of covering it all up. The only emotions here are the relief that people... The only emotion here is relief that people think you've been exonerated. The only anger here is at yourself. Ben Affleck, Russell Crowe, Matt Damon, add them to the list of sleaze that pretend to have known nothing, or refusing to say anything at all despite how closely they worked with Weinstein. They had to know something! The bottom line is that Weinstein, who was recently dropped entirely from the Academy itself, a blatant and failed attempt at saving face amidst these accusations, is a scumbag. He's a piece of crap. He's in a lot of trouble, and this is the end of his and probably many other careers. Granted, once the next Vegas shooting happens, or another Covfefe, it'll probably just get brushed back under the rug and Hollywood will continue its shady operations. Even the president himself has the FBI personally investigating Weinstein, which certainly is going to yield some interesting results. The only question remains is how much of a change this will spark in the current Hollywood climate, and whether or not the American people will make the right choices when they log into their Fandango accounts from now on. Oh, and why the word Covfefe is recognized by Microsoft Office's spell checker. That's also kind of disturbing. It's been a great week for the truth, everyone. Seeing you.
Like what you heard? Hate what you heard? Want to see me dead? Follow me on Twitter at Squeak_Attack and join our Squeak Attack feed Facebook group and fan page. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Leave a comment on the blog. And as always, have a good day.